Hello, I'm Chuck Martin, and this is the Voices of the Internet of Things. With me today is Arthur Erickson, CEO and co-founder of Hylio, a maker of drones used for farming. Arthur has been a field engineer for Laredo Energy, an environmental engineer at LBG-Guyton Associates. At Hylio, Arthur works to develop advanced unmanned aerial vehicles to improve the efficiency and cost of farming. Welcome.
Thank you for that intro. You're blast from the past. Yeah, those were very early jobs I had. So yeah, take me back.
So why drones? Where did this come from? Like, why are you into drones?
I mean, it makes perfect sense actually. I did aerospace engineering at UT Austin, and their curriculum is heavily focused on using drones as like a teaching element, right? Because you get to build the drone, design propulsion system, the electronics, the avionics, program it, and everything. So I really fell in love with the technology then in school, and then. Being young and naive and ambitious, I was like, hey, now that I know this was Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Because I was like, oh, I can build a drone from like a kit. Therefore, I must be like a drone god, and I should be a drone entrepreneur. So then I start the business and make a lot of mistakes, but fortunately, figure it out along with my great team, and here we are.
So how did you figure out to go farming? Because drones could be used for a lot of other things.
Yeah. Again, that was pretty organic. When I started the company with my co-founders, who were fellow Longhorns from UT, we identified ag as a possibility, but also we were looking at package delivery, so logistics space, defense stuff, of course, which they're very popular for, just cinematography and recreational use. So we had all these different categories, and we were like, hey, again, being young and unfocused as business owners, we were like, let's try to do everything. Really, drones can do everything. Of course, you need like a big team, a lot of bandwidth to actually pull that off in terms of execution. I mean, we actually like wisely decided eventually to just focus in on one thing. So we had all these categories and we were developing technology to meet all these different categories, but we eventually said, hey, let's do drone delivery first. So we got some traction there. So we actually did package delivery for the first, say, year and a half, 2 years of the company's life. And then that really didn't make us a lot of money. And of course, the business has to make money to keep growing and innovating. So then we said, hey, let's try one of those other things we had on the drawing board, agriculture. Agriculture ended up being like a much better fit. So really, I mean, we were going where the buffalo are, so to speak, in terms of like what's viable for the business and trying different ideas and seeing what best fit. But me and my co-founders all grew up here in Texas, just around ag, so we know a lot of farmers, ranchers. So it was kind of like a natural cultural fit for us. In fact, I mean, we love ag, just like the people involved. The mission, I mean, helping people grow food, which everybody needs to survive, obviously, really resonated with us. So I think it was just a good natural transition for us.
Oh, so your package delivery, why did that not work? Because that's starting to, I mean, Walmart's doing it nationwide.
This was 10 years ago, right? And so Walmart is just now doing it nationwide, and they've got an army of lawyers for all the regulatory stuff. I mean, yeah, I mean they have more money than God, right? So us being, four dudes from UT Austin and a handful of buddies that were helping out like on an internship basis, we didn't really have the infrastructure to make it profitable, right? So we pulled it off from a technical perspective. We actually did like 300 to 400 actual commercial real-time deliveries in Central America, not the US, because we had
That
to
was
go down there because
early.
of the regulatory issues. Yeah. So back in 2017, we were doing that. So like, I mean, we beat Walmart, Amazon, et cetera, to the punch in terms of like real paid deliveries just yeah, south of the border. And yeah, just I mean, we didn't have the scale to make it work.
So once you did that, you had your drones for package delivery. Were the same kind of drones used then for farming, for agriculture?
Yes, and I've spoken about this in like in other stuff people can find online, but yeah, working in Central America doing parcel delivery, there's a ton of ag down there. Every day we would see like use cases for our drones in ag, and eventually, like I said earlier, we just decided to make that transition and be like, okay, let's actually put a concerted effort into this and retrofit our technology. So, we had built a drone that could lift, 20-ish pounds of payload for parcel delivery. So it's like take that drone, maybe beef up the motors and batteries a bit, make it lift a little bit more, put a tank on it, put some pumps on it. Suddenly you're not delivering coffee and like medicine, you're delivering agrochemicals. So actually, like a lot of the tech we had already built out was conducive to the agricultural payload delivery. It was just slightly different method of delivering the payload. Instead of just dropping off the package at one spot, you're dropping off the package in liquid form, across an entire field. So yeah, that was in like mid to late 2017 that we actually made that technological transition. And then, I mean, since then, it's been 98% agricultural focused. I mean, that number is probably not exactly right, but like, the majority of our business has been ag. That's a good segue though. I mean, we're at now that we're a bigger company, more bandwidth, more engineers, we can finally go back to the original idea of serving, multiple markets. So we're not going to go crazy and try to do like 30 different industrial verticals. But in addition to ag, we're now expanding to things like industrial services. So that could be like pipeline inspection or like power line inspection and management, vegetation management in a non-agricultural setting, some defense related stuff, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, for farming, at the beginning, did you go out and talk to farmers and say, hey, would you use a drone?
Yeah, basically, yes. So we started farming down in like El Salvador, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and we would go to these farms, which like they call ingenios. So there's like a big like ownership company down there, and then the ownership company services like a bunch of different farms. So we'd go to the ingenio, we'd say, hey, give us some farmers that might be interested in this technology or these services, and then we'd go out to the farms. We'd typically do like a quick little demo. So we might spray, 20, 30 acres, um, come back like in a week or so, they would see how effective it was, and then they'd be all on board. They'd be, yes, sir, like please come spray our, 100-acre farm or whatever it was, because the farms down there are smaller, right, than up here in the States. So 1 or 200 acres was like kind of a typical field size for us to service down there. So the farmers down there, just like up here, are kind of like I got to see it to believe it type of people generally. So if you go out and do a demo, like I said, and spray some like a sample of crop, and they see that it's effective, then they'll jump in, right? Because I mean, farming worldwide is like it's all about just like innovating and being adaptable and flexible to make ends meet, right? Because it's not an easy business. So um, the drones were a huge step up for farmers down Central America. Down there, they don't have a lot of mechanized farming like we do here in the States. They don't have like, the nice giant John Deere tractors and whatnot. They're doing a lot of stuff by hand still. So the drones were a huge step change for them in terms of just usability, safety, precision. So it really made sense down there. It really makes sense up here as well, but for possibly different reasons and at a different scale.
So is that where most of your business is, in Central America?
I mean, it was, 10 years ago, but now for sure it's, yeah, to drop like the high 90s number again, like 96, 7% of our business is probably up here in the States, if I had to put a quick number on it. So, I mean, yeah, down there when we were really small, starting out, Central America was like I mean, that's where we were operating. But as of like 2020 and beyond, we came back to the States fully, and I've just been really focusing on the US market.
So are you competing with tractor companies like the Deeres of the world?
In short, yes. Yeah, yes. There are a lot of instances. I'm not saying every instance right now, but there are a lot of instances where the drone technology, for sure outshines classic or let's say traditional terrestrial based application tools, tractors, self-propelled spray rigs. The drones displace helicopters and airplanes in a lot of cases too. Again, careful to say not every single case, but many cases. And as the technology develops and as Hylio develops more products and other companies like ours develop further innovations and more autonomy in the stack, that's just going to continue, right? So we're just going to continue taking more and more market share from the traditional methods.
So your drones, you've got a whole range of drones. You got like four or so different models. What is when a farmer looks at this, what are they looking at? I want something that's bigger volume because it looks like your drones are based on how much they can carry. And what talking about 10, 15 pounds, like that's a lot for a drone.
Yeah, our biggest drone, in fact, can carry 250 pounds,
That's
if not more,
astounding.
actually. Yeah, so I mean, we rate it for 250 pounds. It could actually lift closer to 400, but we don't let people do that because it'd be kind of pushing it. But yeah, the point is, yeah, the drones industry wide are getting much bigger at a pretty fast rate. So there is like a limit to practicality here. So I would say like my personal belief in this space is that the drones, at least for ag tech, are going to level out at probably already where, like I'm saying, at a 250 pound, a 300-pound payload. That's a big drone that already requires two people to lift up. So, we have like a little dolly and wheels and stuff to help you transport it, and you could land it on like a trailer, so you don't have to pick it up and stuff. So like there's these, little tricks to make it more ergonomical, but that's already a very big drone. And any bigger, you're going to run into the same problem that you have with helicopters, which is like, high capital cost, more difficult to manufacture. If you have an accident or some sort of repair or maintenance task you need to do, it's just harder to do with like a bigger machine, requires more specialized tools. So like there's like all these diminishing returns you start to see if you make the drone too big. So like our mentality has always been at Helio, like 30-gallon drone is plenty big. And if you had three or four or five of those autonomously working, now you have thousands of pounds of payload in the air at one given time. It's just modularized across, multiple drone units. And this actually gives you like a lot of operational redundancy, right? So one or two drones have to go down to maintenance or repairs. You still have two or three drones up in the air. So we definitely think the modular approach, I think, is a lot more flexible just from a cost perspective, but also just operationally.
What does the farmer typically do? Like, what's the whole process? They see a demonstration, they say, okay, I want this. Then what happens? Is it training? I know there's licensing involved.
Yeah, so Helio as it scales, I mean, we've put a lot of effort into making this as intuitive and robust from a safety perspective as possible. So like even if you go like we have manuals and training and all sorts of materials and documentation for these customers to follow and learn before they use the drone. But even if they didn't, right, because humans are humans, there's like a lot of guardrails built into the system, both on a hardware and a software level, to just make sure that you really can't mess it up that badly, right? So there's obstacle detection and avoidance. There's fail safes in the mission planning process that don't let you, make missions where multiple drones in a swarm formation would crash into each other. So there's all these fail safes we put in just to, not limit the customer, but of course, like, keep them on track in such a way where it's just mutually beneficial and it's productive for them. So, yeah, there, like I just mentioned, there's tons of training material, and we offer training as well at our site. In our dealer network offers training, so customers can do that. It's their choice. But I guess to give you like more of like a concrete example, most of our customers these days don't opt to do like any in-person training. They don't need to. So they get the drone from either us or our dealers. They go through all the materials we have. And I should mention we have like even like a simulator in our software. So you could actually fly and practice virtual spray missions as much as you want without crashing real drones, right? In our software. So they'll use these tools. They'll use like we've got like huge video series on just like how to do everything. So they'll watch these videos. And after like let's say 4 or 5 hour self-training session, they're typically rated to actually go out and start applying with the drone. So on day one, you're not going to be an expert by any means, but you'll learn enough and you'll know enough, and the drone is safe enough to where you can go out and do some work. And then, as the days and weeks come and you use it more and more, of course, that's where you become more efficient because you learn, just the best way to set up, mission plans and whatnot, and how to, navigate certain, let's say like rare occurrences like, oh, like I've got a drone coming back and there's like a tree in the way. It's like, how do I route around that accurately? I mean, of course, the obstacle avoidance is gonna stop you and help you route around it. But there's tricks to, make the drone go to a certain place so it like comes back faster, et cetera, et cetera. So I digress. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to learn, difficult to master, just like anything. So that's how it works.
Does the farmer have to get the Part 107 license to fly it?
Yes. So still, and I should say, I mean, it's probably going to be this way for a while. But the 107 commercial drone pilot's license, as administered by the FAA here in the States, is a requirement, as well as Part 137 certification. So this is like your 107 is tied to the individual. That's like kind of your quote unquote your drone driver's license. The 137 is a organizational level structure. So it's like your company, your LLC, whatever that may be, would get this Part 137, which is like actually where all like your drone assets are sitting in terms of legal framework. So like you'd have permissions to fly, the Hylio Ares drone that we have, or the Hylio Atlas drone that we have, and this would be all documented under your 137. Your 107 as like the individual pilot license covers more like that individual's fitness for flying the drone. So you have to take a test to get the 107. You have to have a medical record, class three airman's medical evaluation, so things like that on the individual personal level.
The farmers are fine with that.
Yeah, the 107 is fairly easy to get. Thankfully, FAA has done a lot of great work setting that up. So it's a test that you could study for and probably comfortably pass in a week or two of just self-learning. So it's not like a huge deal. You go take the test. It's like I think a 60 question test if I recall correctly. And the 137 is just paperwork, so it's tedious. But here at Helio, like whenever a customer buys a drone, we streamline a lot of that 137 process by just holding your hand through the process flow, and we have like a ton of templates. For example, it's kind of like TurboTax, where it's like, yeah, if you did the IRS stuff all by yourself, um, a priori with like no prior knowledge, it would be like a total mess. But you got TurboTax, thankfully, and like they've got the templates, right? So you're putting in like your information, and like they're filling out all the back end like IRS stuff. So it's kind of like the same thing where like we're filling out the back end stuff. We just know what specific information we need from you as the customer, the farmer first. So yeah,
Your
it's
drones are
it's it's
your
fairly
drones are
straightforward.
autonomous. What kind of autonomy do they have? I mean, how much operator control is needed, or is it more automated?
So the beauty is it's as much or as little autonomy as you want in terms of like flight operations. So the autonomous way to approach our technology is, which I should say is the main way most of our farmer customers use it, is you are looking at our software, which we call Agrosol GCS, and it's got map tiles on it. So you're looking at a map. Google Maps is typically what we use as our map provider, but you could pull in map tiles from whatever. So you look at a map, you look at your field, you draw using point and click interface, you draw the shape of your field that you want to target, and then now you've created like a work area. And then on that work area, you could define dosage you want, speed of the drone, height, etc. So you put those parameters in, and of course, like there's like industry standards and like best practices for different products. So you put those numbers in, and then you just click go, and the drone's going to go execute the mission as you plan it. So from that point on, after the planning, you click go, the drone is doing everything by itself. So it's modulating its pumps. It's got flow meter and sensors on board, so it knows exactly what it's spraying. So whatever dosage you define, it's going to hit, and it's going to do those adjustments automatically. Again, obstacle avoidance. If it sees an obstacle, it's going to see it, stop, react, reroute, whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's fully autonomous if you want it to be. On the flip side, if you're doing something where you need it to be fully manual, there's also that functionality. So you could just flip a switch. We have a controller that we build called the Ground Link that we ship with the drones. So it's basically a Windows tablet and joysticks built into it. So it's an RC controller and a computer all in one package. So all you can do all the autonomous stuff with the computer. If you need to take over with the joysticks and like the button controls, you can. So it's literally right there at your fingertips. I know that's a cliche phrase, but that's how it is.
So while it's flying, does the farm have to kind of keep an eye on it or keep an eye on the screen?
Um, yes, like you definitely should. Like technically speaking, the drone is going to be able to operate all on its own. Of course, best practice, you're the pilot. The FAA deems that you need to be always vigilant and like watching the machine and have control over it. So like legally speaking, and of course just like common sense speaking, you should be monitoring it. Technically speaking, like the drone is capable of operating fully autonomously. You actually wouldn't have to, be there to intervene in the vast majority of cases. And so that, I mean, that raises a good question about like the future of the industry. Basically, Hylio and other companies were working to fully automate the process to where like there's not even a human on site. So there's probably still going to be a human. So the thing that's still manual is refilling the payload and recharging or swapping the batteries between flights. So that still requires the human operator right now. We're building a station now that the drone lands into that will automatically refill payload or change payload and then swap or recharge batteries. So then you could physically feasibly have no human on site, and instead you could have a human teleoperating, telesupervising from, it could be 10 states over, it could be nearby, whatever. But yeah, the point is, we need to show the FAA that, hey, this technology is mature enough, there's enough fail safes put into it to where we can responsibly have this just be telesupervised, and then go from there. So I think that's maybe a 2 or 3 year thing from now that we could have that actually implemented in practice. But yeah, we're developing the tech now and have quite a few prototypes in house.
So typically, what kind of service and maintenance do these things need?
It's relatively speaking very minimal, straightforward. So the drones, what's great about them is that they have very few moving parts. So a drone is all electric, at least the ones we offer. I mean, there are some, ICE, internal combustion engine, like hybrid type of drones, but those are relatively niche used for like mostly military cases. But like most of the drones on the market right now, including ours, are full electric, meaning that it's really clean power. There's no belts, pulleys, lug nuts and stuff like that. So nothing needs to be, maintained or overhauled or like oiled or anything like that. The motors, of course, spin, but they're brushless electric motors. So like there's literally just friction on a tiny bearing on the bottom of the motor, which you need to replace every, X amount of thousands of hours. I forget what the exact number is, but it's very minimal maintenance. I will say like the spray stuff, your pump's going to wear out eventually. Your nozzle tips are going to wear out, but these are also very quick and relatively inexpensive changes. I mean, we're talking like dozens or hundreds of bucks for like, pump change or something like that. So like really, really affordable maintenance, both from a time perspective and from a cost perspective.
What are the costs of these things? It looks like quite a range.
Like just industry wide, if you're looking at like the foreign made stuff, so most of the stuff, of course, is still made in China. Of course, given their manufacturing prowess and scale as a country, they're able to mass produce these drones, and so they can offer, let's say let's say in the 30 to 40 grand range, maybe are like a lot of the Chinese ag drone offerings, whereas our offerings range from about 20,000 on the lower end for one of our smaller units to about 65,000 for our bigger units. So we're not far off from like the foreign made price offerings either. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for. So we for sure, just to speak to Helio directly, like we're positioned more as like the enterprise solution. So a little more professional, more features built in, I should say like a lot more professional, but I'm not trying to be arrogant, but um, you get what you pay for. I don't mean that in a demeaning way. I mean, there's like the cheaper foreign made stuff, and the way that they have the technology set up, it's more disposable, right, so to speak. Whereas like yeah, we position our products and tools as very much like a business asset that isn't just like a spray drone. It's the entire system. So it's like a work order program built into our software. It's like management tools, it's billing tools, it's EPA and FAA compliance reporting automation. So we have all these tools in our ecosystem to really enhance the entire operation, not just like the physical act of spraying a single field. So that's, I think, kind of like the distinction there.
So does a farmer typically get one of these things, like a smaller one, and say, "Hey, this really works," and they say, "Hey, we want some bigger ones." Can they upgrade, or like what's the typical way that it works?
Yeah, so I'd say most customers, so if we sell to like distributors and dealers, that's like a different story, but selling to like individual farmer or farm operator, typically they're coming in and they're buying one or two drones at first, kind of dipping their toes in, so to speak, to the industry. They realize that they work quite well, actually, they like them, and then usually, the subsequent seasons they'll buy two or three more and start deploying them in swarm formation. So that's usually how it goes. Just buying one or two drones at first, and then really scaling up from there, which again, I mentioned earlier, is like a really powerful um, aspect of the drone technology. It's modular, so it's like you don't need to break the bank and go, because a lot of these tractors, for instance, are like 500 grand now. So it's like you don't need to break the bank and make this huge purchase. You could buy one and kind of scale up your productivity as you get more and more work and become more comfortable with it. So you buy, 40 grand drone today, you buy two more the next year. Now you've got three drones deployed and you can do thousands of acres per day. So like it's really not far off from like a big tractor in terms of productivity, like amount of acres that you're able to hit per day. In fact, the drones, for a lot of reasons, can even outpace like a big tractor, just because of like the physical freedom they have, being able to fly and not being held back by geography of the ground and stuff like that.
So do the farmers typically look at this and say, "This is really cool," or do they look at it and say, "This is really cost effective"? Like, what is their motivation in your experience?
It's for sure both. I mean, farmers, especially now, are very practical people. Like it's hard to make ends meet. There's a lot of exogenous factors that are affecting farmers' top and bottom lines right now. So everyone's very practical right now, which as they should be. That's how you should run any business. And so for sure, most of the conversation is ROI. So yeah, exactly. I mean, like, how much am I paying for this thing? Why is it better than my tractor or the airplane that I hire out? And what's the ROI per acre applications with these things? So those are most of the conversations we're having.
So over time, over the years, have you gone from small farms to now really large farms in terms of your products?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that like I want to make it clear that to this day, I mean, the technology is so flexible. You could buy a small drone if you have a small farm, or you could buy, three big drones if you have a huge farm or farms, plural. So to this day, it's very scalable, and we serve like all sorts of farmers, big and small. But yeah, for sure, like making the bigger models, like getting up to 30, 40, 50 gallons, like we're offering now, has unlocked like the big Iowa farms, the big like Dakota landscapes where you've got hundreds, if not thousands of acres in one spot to treat. So yeah, bigger drones has for sure unlocked that ability.
So lastly, why would a farm company or farm not use drones?
Um, Kind of a loaded question. In terms of like, yeah, I don't want to be insulting. I like my thing is There, in my estimation, of course, I'm biased. There's no reason that every single farm in America, there's about 2 million farms, right? I think last time I checked. There's no reason why each and every farm doesn't have at least some use case for at least one drone. So I'm not saying the 200-acre farm needs to buy five of the big ones, but they could buy the one small one and do a lot with it. I mean, get a lot of bang for their buck, and so on and so forth. So. Yeah, I mean, I think every single farm in America should have one. There's not really any compelling reason I think to stay away from them. Like they're just so versatile. Like to elaborate, I'm again not saying that it's going to replace everything you're already using. It's only going to enhance it. So I mean, there's instances where it could outright replace your traditional equipment, but there's a lot of cases where it's just going to make your life better. So you can use your, let's say, like your tractor to do the middle of your field where like there's no fence rows or fence lines or like power lines to worry about. And then the drone gets like the 20% that's on the edges of the field. So I mean, there's stuff like that where they work beautifully together. So that's why I'm saying it's not like one or the other. It's why not both. The drones are like a very affordable, low barrier to entry thing to try out. So I would urge everyone to give it a shot.
I look forward to watching your growth. Thank you so much, Arthur, and thank you all for listening to the Voices of the Internet of Things. I'm Chuck Martin.
Appreciate it, Chuck. Thanks for having me.